15 reasons why Linux Mint is a great distro to start off with Linux. When I'm asked to recommend a good beginner's distro, I always tend to hesitate. Because on one hand, Linux is Linux, and there's a freedom there to choose any distro that appeals to you. But there are some new users to Linux that become stifled by so many different distros to choose from that they just want one to get started with. In that case, I always recommend Linux Mint because it's a great distro. It's a great distro to choose to use to learn Linux, and it very well could be your forever distro. You may not have ever heard of Linux Mint before, and you may be brand new to Linux yourself. Linux Mint is a well-used and well-regarded distro that is used by millions, and it's based upon its user-friendliness, its ability for customization, and its constant reliability. And there are many other reasons why it gets constantly recommended as a good first distro. Some people start off with Linux Mint and stay there. Why bother trying other distros when Linux Mint works so well? Well, today I'm going to share 15 reasons why Linux Mint is a great choice for a first distro, especially if you're coming from Windows or macOS and just want something that works. Number 1, it feels familiar right away. There's a lot of similarities with Linux Mint, especially with Windows users. Linux Mint looks and feels a lot like Windows does, so they feel right at home. You've got a start menu, a taskbar, and a system tray, just like you're used to. There are a lot of other features built into Linux Mint that Windows users are already familiar with, so they don't have to feel as if Linux Mint is entirely new. And Mac users might want to know that there are also available docks for Linux Mint. One that I use all the time that's great to use is called Plank, and you can download it from the Linux Software Center and use it completely for free. Number 2, it works right after you install it. Mint comes with multimedia drivers either already installed, or it prompts you to download them either during the install or immediately after. Regardless, you'll always be able to play your videos, your music, and common media file formats. They all work right out of the box. Mint even comes with useful apps like an Office suite, a professional information manager like Outlook, a file sharing app, a video viewer that lets you watch television from around the world, and a lot more. So once Linux Mint is done installing and after you set it all up, you're ready to go. And moving into Linux Mint is quick and painless. Number 3, the installation is beginner friendly. The installer uses plain language and walks you through the process step by step without overwhelming you. Having to install an operating system yourself might be new to some users, especially when you're used to the operating system being pre-installed on your computer when you purchase it. But don't worry, Linux Mint makes the process simple. Answer a few questions, set up your user account, and then you choose how you want to install Linux Mint, as the only operating system or alongside another operating system in a dual boot configuration. Number 4, excellent hardware support. Linux Mint is very good at detecting all kinds of hardware like Wi-Fi cards, Bluetooth cards, graphics tablets, game controllers, printers, even on older machines. It's good to test your hardware by booting into the Linux Mint USB Live environment before actually installing it. But once you're in that USB Live environment, take the time to test out all your hardware and make sure that it all works properly. Number 5, it's stable and reliable. Every time I install Linux Mint, it performs perfectly. And this reputation means that Linux Mint is a great first distro for someone new to Linux, and it's a great forever distro to use on your computers from now on. Reliable and ready, Linux Mint has become that go-to distro for people who use Linux It has built a reputation as being reliable and stable, and holds on to that reputation to this day. Linux Mint just keeps getting better and better. Number 6, great for older computers. Not only is Linux Mint great for newer computers, but it's great for older computers as well. The Mate and XFCE editions of Linux, along with Cinnamon, provide a perfect trio of operating systems for all kinds of computers. If you've got an older laptop that struggles with Windows, Linux Mint can make that older laptop feel fast again. Mate, XFCE, and Cinnamon can help you revive some of your older hardware and bring it back to life once more. Number 7, a simple software manager. This software manager is kind of the same thing as the Microsoft App Store and the Mac App Store. Linux Mint Software Manager is well organized, clean, and actually helpful. It doesn't drown you in technical details. Linux Mint Software Center includes some extra software that you might not find available in other distros. It'll even protect you from unverified software as well. Number 8, no forced updates. I love that on Linux Mint I get to choose when it's time to upgrade. I usually upgrade on the weekends, but you decide when updating is right for you. There's a little indicator in the taskbar telling you that there are some updates available. Click on the icon, and from there you can download the update at your earliest convenience. You won't experience reboots or interruptions right in the middle of your busiest, most productive times during the day. Number 9, friendly community. If you run into trouble, you're not alone. There are Linux Mint forums that you can join for free. And there's a chatting app called Matrix built right into Linux Mint just for when you run into trouble. It's good to know that the Linux community is known for being helpful. There is a tight bond between the development team at Linux Mint and the user community. The developers at Linux Mint communicate constantly with their users, and they use their feedback to improve Linux Mint. Number 2, built-in system tools. Linux Mint includes graphical tools for updates, drivers, backup system snapshots, so beginners don't have to live in the terminal. While you certainly could, you don't have to. In fact, I find it's rare that I go into the terminal when I'm using Linux Mint. I hardly use it anymore. While the terminal is very powerful and therefore very dangerous, it is something that should be learned. I want to learn from my own knowledge, and I'm going to create a series of videos about the terminal. I just haven't planned that out yet, so stay tuned. Number 11, you can learn Linux gradually. Personally, the terminal is something that I'd like to learn and master myself, but I find it hard to find the time to dedicate to learning. It's definitely a challenge, and there are other things that I'd like to learn about Linux Mint. I'd like to get a hold of the manual that you can find in the Welcome app. I know I'll be able to dedicate some time for learning more. Number 12, Ubuntu-based software support. Most Linux tutorials and apps are made for Ubuntu, and Mint benefits from that entire ecosystem. So if you run across a tutorial or a help article made for Ubuntu, then since Linux Mint is based from Ubuntu, chances are a Linux Mint user can benefit from that Ubuntu information. Number 13, privacy respecting. No telemetry, no ads, and no tracking. Linux Mint respects your privacy right out of the box. Who could ask for anything more? So you can feel safe while using Linux Mint. There is a simple-to-use firewall app that comes with Linux Mint that you simply flip a switch to turn it on. Number 14, free and open source. Freedom is always a good thing, but freedom can be looked at from different points of view. With Linux Mint, you have the freedom to make the distro just the way you like it. It's your computer, so it's your rules. Then there's the freedom of cost. Linux Mint is totally free to use, modify, and redistribute. Open source simply means that you can view the coding under the hood and see what it's all about. You can learn about how distros are put together, or you can modify Linux Mint and redistribute it and call it your own unique Linux distro. Number 15, it gets out of your way. And as you're using Linux Mint and getting things done, somehow after a while you'll notice Linux Mint just gets out of the way, leaving you in the zone. Linux Mint doesn't try to impress you with flashy features, it just lets you use your computer, but it can be customized enough to allow you to tweak how it looks. Linux Mint may be your first distro, or it may be your forever distro. Either way, you should at least give it a good and honest try. Linux Mint has a lot to offer, and I know that after a while of using it, you'll find that Linux Mint is a great starter distro or a great forever distro. When I first started Linux, my first distro was Ubuntu with the Unity desktop environment. Linux Mint was around, but back then Ubuntu was the distro of choice. I would say that over the years that crown has slowly been passed over to Linux Mint. I love that Linux over the years just keeps changing and evolving, and it just keeps getting better. If you've been using Linux for a long time, which was the distro that you started off with? Was it Ubuntu as well? Let us know in the comments how you started with Linux. Maybe this is a bad way to describe Linux Mint, but today Linux Mint just might be the gateway drug, or at least the point of entry for most users to Linux. It's really easy to use, and it's so customizable with just a couple clicks. You can always customize Linux into a more recognizable state in the future. If you're new to Linux and thinking about switching, Mint is one of the safest places to start. And it's a good springboard that'll let you learn about other distros quite effectively. Thank you for joining me on a brief overview on Linux Mint. I really hope it has been helpful to you. If you found this video helpful or interesting, I'd always appreciate your comments, your likes, and hopefully your subscription. Until next time, take care.